I just unmuted it, so we have sound now. So we missed all of that. That's incredible. All right, we have sound now. So I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning. Hopping on tonight. It's thank you for that comment, Ashley Johnson. Hopping on tonight. It's a little organic, right? Not my normal Monday and Wednesday pick 'em a mailbag and recap a mailbag, but coming on tonight talking about bet, check, or fold. So if you look at my casino background, we're going to talk about some dramatic issues from this past weekend that everybody wants to talk about, and that is what fan bases are melting down right now because of the play of their teams right now. Who's just checking and going, all right, like what's going on here? It doesn't look like the norm, but we're here and we're good. And who's betting? Who's like, okay, it's going to be fine. We're going to push forward. We're going to talk about those things. And I hopped right in and talked about Alabama, and I talked about USF, and I talked about you know everybody right now at Alabama is just truly melting down because they're like, what happened at USF, right? So with this whole thing, like what, like people are they're arguing, they're fussing and fighting about like Jalen Milroe didn't deserve to be pulled, this, that, and other. I don't think Jalen Milroe was pulled. I think that Nick Saban needed to be like, listen, if I'm going to have a place where I can put these two quarterbacks in there and go, if one of these guys is the guy, who is it? So I don't think there's any method to the madness on who was starting. I think we knew that both of those quarterbacks would play. I think if it got down to a dire need and the defense was not performing well, which it almost got to this, but I think once they saw the defense couldn't do anything, they were fine with it. But they let them battle it out. I think I mentioned right before Ashley Johnson told me that my sound was out. Thank you so much. I've done this whole thing without sound. I don't even know how that happened. It's crazy. But Tyler Buckner was 5 for 14. I mean, there were some throws that were just legitimately in the ground, and they were not anything like he was running for his life or anything like that. It was just straight drop back, 4 or 5 step drop back, throw it in the ground. Um, and the whole time, the reason I think this was like a conversation between Nick and Jalen was because either one, Jalen Milroe is an absolute just incredible teammate, or he was told, "Hey, like, unfortunately, we gotta answer some questions. If it's not you, who is it? So we're gonna play Tyler, we're gonna play Ty, and we're gonna see which one of these quarterbacks are either A, gonna be your backup, or B, gonna challenge you for the job. Because I got a feeling if the two things they wanted to see was is Tyler Butler knows the offense so well. If he comes out and just marches them down and up the field with all the talent they have on offense, yeah, why not? I mean, if he can lead them to victory, and then you got Ty Simpson, who he was in the game the most, but like both of their stats combined are not even what Jalen threw for against a better defense in Texas. I think he threw for over 200 yards. Yeah, he threw for 2 picks, but I don't think Ty Simpson and Tyler Buckner gave them any chance of opening the playbook up. And so a lot of people are like, well, what's going on in Alabama? What's I'll tell you what's going on in Alabama. So here's the thing. I said it at the beginning of the year. Um, but the offensive line play is not good right now. They have a lot of there's a mixture of older guys up there, younger guys, but they had a lot of people that a lot of those guys went to the NFL draft the last 2 years. So their line is pretty depleted. Also, you're asking them to run a brand new offense and a blocking scheme that and it's not the same thing with the Tua Tagovailoa. It's not the same thing with the you know with the Jalen Hurts. It's not the same thing with the Bryce Youngs. These are not. I mean, yeah, Jalen Milroe can run, but the three quarterbacks before him, they were running with a purpose. They were running to buy time because they still knew where they were going with the ball. Right now, Jalen Milroe, when he decides to run the ball, he's running the ball. That's it. He's not going backwards from there. He's going to run the ball. And so I think that's one of the big things. I think you're looking at a secondary that's struggling with a lot of injuries. And I think you're looking for key players. If you notice right now, has anybody looked at Alabama and just went and pointed a finger at a person on that team? They got a bunch of great players. They got 4s and 5 stars everywhere. But have you been able to point to one player that you actually think is just go, that's the horse. That's the guy that's going to take to the national championship this year. And the funny thing is that there's so many of Kirk Herbstreit and everybody from the game day crew. There's a bunch of them that said they were going to either be in the national championship or they're going to be winning it all. I think Herbstreit picked Alabama to win it all this year. merely off of Nick Saban alone, I think. I mean, if he had to support it, I would love to know what's the support. Did he think that in the SEC that Jalen Milroe was going to just be able to rush the ball for 200 yards? I have no idea why he would think that. Um, and so, and then you look at this too. So look at Nick real quick. Look at Nick Saban, man. I don't know if you've seen him the past 3 games. He just looks like tired. He just looks a little worn out. And then I started really looking back, and I'm like, look at his coaching. Like, look at the coaches that he has, either A, in the league, or B, around college football as head coaches or big time coordinators. I mean, you just go down it. You just go down it from Lane Kiffin to Sark to Napier to Kirby to Dan Lanning to, I mean, geez, there's probably 4 or 5 more out there. Tosh Lapoy. I mean, there's so many. I mean, Pete Golden um, is the coach over at Maryland right now. Loxley is his name. So many assistants that are either head coaches or prominent pieces of other. There's like, I think Deion Sanders has like 3 or 4 staff members on Colorado's squad right now that were pulled from Alabama that are big time assistants over there that were doing secondary jobs at Alabama. So when you look at that and you go, how do you keep going? And don't get me wrong, Nick's an alpha. He's an alpha that's he can run the program, he can run the team. But I think what you're seeing right now is a little bit of a hodgepodge of maybe why Reese wasn't so effective at Notre Dame. Maybe why I don't know. Maybe why when you look at the 4 and 5 stars they have, there's just no standouts this year, right? And also when you look on the defense, when you look at Steele, I think it's Kevin Steele. When you look at the defense is definitely not as, it's not Alabama defense of old. It's just there's something about this team this year that's not. And there's a lot of SEC teams that you can kind of look and go. That's why we're talking tonight. That you can go, what's going on, right? So Alabama being a team that's coming up, getting ready to play, they got to get into play where they hop in there against Ole Miss this week, and you got to wonder is Alabama going to be favored? Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, also, Roydell Williams, he had like almost 130 yards of offense, but not because he had to. He had to have that much off. He had to have that many rushing yards. I think they combined for over 203 yards of rushing on Saturday. And you look at the defense, like there's so many guys with multiple numbers of tackles, meaning like USF had the ball a lot. It just wasn't your average. It's not what I think Alabama wanted to see after losing to Texas. I think what Alabama wanted to see was one of those quarterbacks come out and maybe not like go out there and drop 60 on them, but just be solid, throw some touchdowns, lead the offense up and down the field. The defense needed to be, just make some stops, get them healthy again. But they had a little fight. They fought all the way up until at least 3 or 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. That was a 10-3 game for about 90% of the game. So saying all this to say, when you look at Alabama, when you look at am I betting, am I checking, or am I folding as a Las Vegas, I don't know, casino player right now? I'm going to be honest with you. I am folding on Alabama this year. I can't even check. And I'll tell you why. It's the competition that's still to come. LSU is not going to be easy. Ole Miss is definitely not going to be easy. Auburn is not going to be easy. Iron Bowl, I think you see an improved Auburn team this year, regardless of if they have a first-gen new coach. You see a lot of teams coming out of the West that are going to give them some problems, some real problems. So I'm curious to see betting lines. I hadn't even looked before I got on. I don't even know if they're favored. They're going, I mean, it's in Happy Valley, man. It's in Happy Valley. I don't know. I just don't know. I do know this. A Lane Kiffin offense is going to put a heck of a lot more points on that board than USF did. And they're going to need a lot more than 17. They're going to need a lot more than 10 in the fourth quarter to be in a spot where they're not playing for their lives. So I'm folding on Alabama, man. They have a quarterback controversy right now. Milroe is definitely the best out of the three. So I will back up on that now that I've seen them play. The other two quarterbacks are deer in the headlights. Um, there's nobody ready right now other than Milroe. Um, and it's hard to really say this because Alabama has not been in this situation in a long time. So I'm folding on Alabama. Unfortunately, I would not bet against them. I think if I'm looking at Alabama right now, that'd be me looking at my hand and seeing if it was playable and betting on it. And I don't really think I would bet on it right now. So I'm going to fold on that one. Let's move on to another fan base that is obviously melting down from last night. Everybody saw the Tennessee Florida game, and I actually went on Wednesday and I said a few things about this game. And the number one thing I said was if they can do a few of these things, if they can make Tennessee beat them on the ground, Florida can make Tennessee beat them on the ground. They can control the clock. They can run the ball against this Tennessee defense. It's at night. It's in the swamp. It's at home. Florida has a chance. Florida didn't have a chance. Florida actually owned the game because they ran the ball incredibly effective. Defense made Joe Milton beat them, and Joe Milton did not beat them. And they're in the swamp at night. They're in the swamp at night. I said it over and over and over. They're at the swamp at night. And that's what they ran into. Graham Mertz, he didn't do anything like incredibly flashy. He just did enough. I think he just did enough. And what you're going to see moving forward is a team now that needed this win. Billy Napier needed this win. He needed it tonight. I mean, last night, because I mentioned it at the beginning of the year. If they don't, they have a really tough road ahead of them. They would have possibly been looking at a 1-3, 2-4 type start. But after this, they're 2-1, and all of a sudden Utah doesn't even come into play. They're sitting here and they're sitting in a successful little run here with the SEC East. They've beaten Tennessee, which is a heavy opponent off their schedule. Basically, the only people they have left that are games they're not probably going to be favored in the East are Georgia, and maybe Missouri or Kentucky. I would say those three teams. I'd say out of those three, Georgia and Kentucky scares you the most because we really haven't seen Kentucky yet, right? We'll see it. We'll see them in an SEC matchup this week that'll actually kind of let us know where they're at. But when you look at Graham Mertz, like he didn't do anything flashy. 19 for 24, 166 yards. As I watched him, the game plan for Napier was if they don't have the ball, they can't score. And so you saw these daunting 12, 14, 15 play drives. Trevor Etienne had 172 yards rushing. That had been a three-headed monster for the last 3 games, between Trevor Etienne, Montrell Johnson, who got dinged up a little bit in the beginning of the game, so it wasn't as much on him. And then, Treon Webb was in there as well. But Trevor Etienne finally kind of showed up to play, and the defense really showed up. You know what Tennessee likes to do? They like to spread you out. They like to really get you to where they can RPO. They like to get the ball in space and let those receivers run. It happened a couple times in the first quarter, and you were like, if this is something that's going to happen the rest of the game, this is a done deal. Actually, when Tennessee went the length of the field in about 3 or 4 minutes, and Joe Milton was just flicking the ball in any direction he wanted to, I was like, this is going to get weird. And then Florida got a touchdown, 7-6 ball game, and then from there they never looked back. And just ball control, taking away Joe Milton. I mean, Joe Milton was 20 of 34 with 1 interception. Was he great? Was he good? Yeah. Was he great? Absolutely not. He was definitely not what a Hendon Hooker can be for you, or what he was for Tennessee last year at this time. Receivers, there was multiple receptions. Of course, Tennessee made a little run at the end, but nothing. But when you look back at the Tennessee team that we're looking at right now, it definitely doesn't have the Jalen Hyatts, the Hendon Hookers, The team last year, I forget the offensive lineman's name that went first round of the draft, but they're missing a lot of key elements. And I watched that entire game last night. And if I'm betting, checking, or folding, I'm, I'm just on Tennessee right now. I'm checking because I'll tell you why. Because I do think when you look at Heupel, they will come back from this. They will get better from this. The offense, they will look at how they can get Joe Milton some plays that he needs some go-to plays. I don't know if that book can be open as wide open as it was for Hooker. Hooker was a very smart guy. That thing was wide open. A lot of those plays last year, it reminds me kind of a Stetson Bennett at Georgia last year and some things we're going to talk about with Georgia here in a second. But it's just a lot less third game of the year. It's a lot less like Stetson Bennett playing backyard football or Hendon Hooker playing backyard football. And it's a scripted Joe Milton thing where it's like you can now tell why they needed to run the ball in the beginning of the year. You can tell that. I kept asking the question, is Tennessee really rushing the ball really well because they have to or because they can? I think they had to because they knew they were going to get themselves in a position where if Joe Milton couldn't win it with his arm, then we were going to be in a predicament with the run game. And if you look at the run game, they tried. I mean, Jalen Wright had 16 carries, 63 yards, didn't touch the end zone. The longest run that was given up was 12 yards from scrimmage. That's insane. Like, that's insane, especially how far they spread you out. It's hard to do because you got like receivers that are all the way beyond the hashes to the left and all the way beyond the hashes to the right. And then you're asking those backers in that secondary to play in a box that is just so huge because it takes it takes your corners and it takes anybody that's covering out there completely out of the run play. So it's every man for itself. It's assignment football. So that's impressive from Florida. That's an impressive defensive performance coming off of the loss on the road to Utah. Obviously, they had a gimme last week before that. I think they played McNeese. And then this week, very impressed by Florida this week. They did the same thing. They stayed themselves. They did the same thing they did to come back. Actually, if you go back and you look at, I'm going to go do this too. If you go back and look at that Utah tape, they tried to do what they did at Utah. It was just early. It was early. They're young. They're trying to get some chemistry going, some culture going there. And it just didn't set too many mistakes. And Utah, unlike Tennessee, Utah took advantage of it. So kudos to Florida. But as far as the Tennessee fan base, like, I mean, do you have something to worry about? I think some people are calling they're calling for this other quarterback they have on the roster. And I should know his name, but I don't. But I still think Joe Milton is he's an able quarterback. He knows what he's doing. I don't know, man. I'm checking on Tennessee. I think they'll get it together. I think they'll be fine. I think it will still be. I think Georgia and Tennessee will still be definitely a measuring stick game later on in the year. But Florida just snuck their head in, and if Florida continues what they're doing from last night, Florida, I'm not ready to say if they're back yet. I know I said I'd sneak Florida in on this one, but I'm not ready to say they're back yet. I think I need to see some consistency. I think Billy Napier is a really humble guy. I loved his interview. Obviously, all coaches are going to say they're happy for their kids and happy for their fan base and everything like that. But I will say that you can continue to see that Billy Napier is unfazed by the talk on the outside. He reminds me a lot of Kirby. He's quiet on the outside, and he's very, very vocal on the inside, which means he's saving all the drama that you're seeing right now in some other organizations that is on the outside, and he's just keeping it on the inside, and it's going to show up. It's going to show up big, I think, for Florida. I was not a Florida fan, but I was not high on Florida. I still think the ceiling for them is they're on tape now. They're on tape that Graham Mertz is just gonna try to be a offensive manager. if they can't run the football, I will tell you they are going to have problems because they're going to have to rely on him to throw the football. It was very evident that that wasn't something that was going to be a big thing for them. I mean, not many, they spread the ball a little bit, but Graham Mertz is not going to be able to sit back there and just hunt you down. As far as Tennessee is concerned, they're going to stick to script. Heupel's going to stick to the script. The defense played well. I just think the defense didn't understand at the time, the logics of everything is I would have made Graham Mertz beat me deep. Like I would have pulled those safeties up and we would have stopped that run. And I would have said, look, if you're not just gonna trickle it down the field every time and then we bust the coverage and literally it's a 15, 20-yard pass that gets us and gaps us every time. I don't know if I could have sat back there and late, they fought them off late. I think Tennessee tried, but when they had to become unbalanced and Joe Milton had to try to win it for them, it lasted a little bit, but it didn't last long. So I'm going to check on Tennessee and go. I think they have some winnable games definitely next week. They're pretty much off next week, or they kind of have that USF makeup game. I think they play UTSA next week, I think it is. So I'm checking on them. I think Tennessee's fine. I don't think their fan base needs to be worried. I think you're definitely disappointed from a win at Florida, but you know what? Sometimes, those videos those celebrations that happen, sometimes that you want to look back and just be like, I really didn't expect that to go down like it did. Because I know there was some videos showed of the celebration, and a lot of it had to do less with beating Florida and more to the fact of discrediting who Florida is. And that bulletin board material sometimes is painful when it comes back around on you. So, Florida just got the best of them, but I'm not folding on Tennessee. I think Tennessee is going to be fine. I think they're going to still be a force to be reckoned with in the East. Let's hop on this. Let's hop on this Georgia thing really quick. So Georgia played South Carolina on Saturday, and obviously knowing I'm a pretty big Georgia fan, obviously all fan bases know that these are the three games that absolutely everybody is just talking about. Like I said, besides the 61-yard last second field goal, there wasn't much other to talk about other than these three games. I'd love to talk about Colorado and Colorado State, but that's not the SEC. And I'll give my 2 cents at the end before we head out of here, but not much on that. But when let's look back at Georgia and South Carolina. I will tell you, there's a lot of Georgia fans out there that at halftime. Well, there was a mix. There was a mixture. There was a mixture at halftime going, what's going on? Where's the team at? Are we even here? Did they even show up? It's 14-3 at halftime. Spencer Rattler looked like, I think he was like 15 for 17. Ended up being 22 of, ended up being 22 of 42 for 256. But man, if you look at that stat in the first half and that stat line in the second half, it's mind blowing what happened in the first half and the second half. And I'm not going to discredit something like, I don't know that if you look back, and this is, please, I'm going to be honest with you, this is not because I'm a Georgia fan. If you look at it, just look at it from the details. If you watch the game, 2 plays that you look at and go, you look at the 15-yard bubble pass, 3rd and 15 that South Carolina scored on. There was a bunch of just blown assignments right there as far as tackling, like just absolute tackling. We didn't tackle is all that happened there. Like that, the sky's not falling. Schumann is not on the firing blocks. Muschamp didn't, he didn't go back to his old South Carolina roots and give him the play. I've read so much in these Georgia Bulldog chats that it's just like what in the world what are you talking about? I just can't even fathom what's being talked about. And then the other one, when I went back and looked at it, I actually saw Knox, who scored that touchdown. He came out from he was on the line and then he was off the line. And so when I go back and I look, and you look at the middle linebackers looking at what the checkoffs are, he technically at times he went from on the line to off the line twice. And then when they snapped the ball, he came off the line as a receiver, and we never checked him off out of the play. We play action and they go to Knox. So was it blown? Yes. But also you could look back and be like, was there a procedure call there? Yeah, it wasn't. So be it. It's 14-3. And we missed a ton of field goals. Georgia missed a ton of field goals. Yes, we officially have a field goal kicking issue right now. There are two kickers. Peyton Woodring. Let me make sure I don't botch his name. Woodring, yes, I almost said Woodyard. Peyton Woodring. I mean, he 1 for 3. Poor kid, freshman. There's two kickers back there that can do the job. Kicker that was backing up Podletsky last year is also back there. And so we'll probably have a little kicking competition this week as well. But is what it is, right? In the SEC right now, there's a lot of things that are unfolding right now. We're trying to figure out who's going to be where on a lot of teams this week. We've seen Alabama get tested. We've seen LSU obviously get tested and lose. We've seen Ole Miss get tested with Tulane. We've seen Georgia get tested with South Carolina. We've seen Tennessee get tested and beaten by Florida. Florida beaten by Utah. We've seen Kentucky come out, a little bit, I would say slow. You've seen Missouri coming out, the offense not producing, and then they do produce, but they only win that game by a last-second field goal. You haven't seen a lot of Arkansas loses to BYU this week. You've just seen Mississippi State loses this week. Crazily enough, when you really look at it, some people can be betting and go, "Hey, man, Auburn, what's Auburn been doing?" Auburn's been kind of just weaving their way through, and they haven't played any. Just their competition's coming. We get to see them against Texas A&M this week, and then against Georgia the following week. But Auburn's been kind of steady as they go, and maybe they haven't seen the competition that some of these other people have. But I like South Carolina, and so when you look at that 14-3 score, you kind of look and go like, should you be worried? I'll be honest with you. I'm a Georgia fan. I was worried. I was worried because of these things, and I actually put them on my personal Facebook feed. Didn't put them on at Ready, Tech, Go, but I did comment that if this happened, if these two things happened, then it will be a different game in the second half, and it happened. And believe me, I'm not this fortune teller or anything of that nature. I just looked at what was going on. And I'll tell you two things I didn't melt down about. I didn't melt down about Carson Beck. I didn't melt down about Mike Bobo. If you look at the play calling in the second half, even in the first half, none of the play calling put us in a situation where we're down 14-3. Two blown assignments on defense put us down 14-3. If you want to claim slow start, we had the opportunity just to be a tight game at the beginning of the game. But honestly, would it have woken us up? I didn't want it to be 14-3, but at halftime it's 14-3, and we're sitting here, and Kirby's locker room conversation was I want to hear the live feed, but he says that it went like this. He says we're going to take it one play at a time. It's one play at a time. We're not going to get this back with, we're going to go out there. We basically get 2 possessions to their 1 in the second half, and we're going to go out there and we're going to score on the first one, and then we're going to stop them, and then we're going to get our possession, and then we're going to be right back in the ball game. And they did. But I'll tell you the 2 reasons that I put. Instead of talking about Carson Beck or talking about Mike Bobo, these are the things I talked about. I talked about the offensive line being able to make sure they're doing their part and doing their assignment so that we can run the ball and be balanced. The second thing I said was we're going to have to get defensive push from our front 3 or 4. We can't afford to send 6 every time. We can't afford it. We did sometime in the second half, but it was after the fact that we could prove that we could send 4 and get somebody there. I didn't say get a sack. I didn't say get a quarterback hurry. I just said get somewhere to cause Spencer Rattler to have to think about where he's throwing it. The first half, he didn't think about anything. He played pitch and catch the whole first half. The guy was damn near perfect for 2 quarters. I think it was 15 for 17. No pressure at all from the front 3 or front 4. But those were the 2 factors that I saw. If we were doing those things in the second half, and we still weren't winning, then we could probably possibly bring in is Beck, is it Bobo, all of those things. Now, what you saw different. Also, I said this: 19, Brock Bowers. He might not only be the best tight end in college football, he might be the best player in college football right now. And we can argue about it all day. I'm not at the casino tonight. I'm not talking about bet checking or folding on a team to argue who's the best Heisman candidate. Sorry about that. I will tell you what I am arguing is that if you can't get him the football, there's going to be problems. He is one of the most exciting players in college football. He just happens to play for the University of Georgia, and he just happens to have 2 national championships under his belt. He's been there, done that. He's battle tested. He's the leader on this offense. He has to touch the ball. I mentioned in the pick'ems, Daijun Edwards is going to make a big difference this week. Man, it was nice to see a ball carrier with vision. When the whole everybody, I'm gonna go my soapbox here. Everybody for the last 2 weeks has been like Bobo up the middle. Why is he running up the middle? Why is he running left? Why is he running right? Newsflash: all running plays either go left, right, or forward. Okay, all of them. We can complain. 3 things have to happen: the play has to be called, the line has to block, and the running back has to have vision so that when something breaks down, things can happen. And there was plenty of times that things broke down, and Daijun Edwards saw them and made something out of nothing, but he also made everything out of everything. And that's also sometimes where we didn't capitalize the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season, is when we saw things and then we didn't capitalize on them. We tried to make our own things out of something that weren't there. Just run the play. And so I don't think it's Bobo. I don't think it was Carson. I think you saw the line the second half, the defensive line, get pressure. We did send six. If you looked at it, a lot more exotic blitzes, less vanilla, less just straight push. We had a little more stunning up front from the line. You could see it too. There was one call where they jumped. The crowd got involved. I think the touchdown to come out of the second half was crucial. It got the crowd back involved. And so I think when you look at that and look how those things combined, when we started being able to run the ball, offensive line was imposing their will. I think it's one of the best offensive lines in the country. I think we're dinged up now a little bit more with Mims. I'm looking to see the report on that. I've heard just a sprained ankle, but we'll see. Thank goodness he'll possibly have a week to have a little bit of time off at UAB, and then they got Auburn on the road. But you saw an offensive line that imposed their will, and when they did that, they gave Carson a little bit of a, hey, like, surprise, we're throwing the ball. He looked more confident. The first throw he threw in the second half, he stepped up in the pocket and he just let it fly. And I think what you saw in the first half was you saw a very much, hey, we don't trust you with the playbook like we trusted Stetson. And then the second half, Bobo was like, you know what? Forget it. We're going to call the plays. I'm going to call the plays that I think are going to win, and I'm going to trust that the players that are out there can win it. And they did. And so I think when you look at it, Kirby goes, hey, they're resilient. Hey, they showed a lot of fight, down 14-3. South Carolina has a great team. So let's turn to the fan bases right now. What are the biggest meltdowns right now? So when we look at bet, check, or fold, are we bet, checking, or are we folding on Georgia? The fan bases right now, I would probably say, are checking. Some of them are folding. Some of them folded in the second half. I'm in these group chats with, not necessarily group chats, but these pages on Facebook where I have these incredibly probably wise and genuine and incredible human beings of men out there that are talking college football, and they may absolutely think they know what they're talking about, but good Lord, every time something goes wrong, that's the reason why Georgia's going to suck this year. It's just crazy. Absolutely crazy. It's when Beck doesn't have a problem, we definitely got a kicking problem. And when we don't have a kicking problem, well, Beck's not it. And then Beck comes in. By the way, let me just throw Carson Beck's stats out there really quick. 27 of 35, 269. We rushed for 118 yards. Daijun Edwards did. And let's just remind ourselves, barely little of Kendall Milton. Cash Jones was more of a Dalvin. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting a little Cook's name from 2 years ago. He's more of a Cook from 2 years ago. So more of a catch it out of the backfield type thing. Robinson, I think we all saw it. I like Rod Robinson. We handed the ball one time off in the rain to him, and the handoff we almost gave it to him on the 20-yard line. And I think Kirby was like, yeah, I'm good with this for right now. Let's not put this kid in this type of environment right now when I got Daijun Edwards over here that can seal the deal. We're going to need Milton, and we're going to need Dylan Bell to stay back there, and we're going to need Cash Jones to be back there. But the run game looked really good the second half. The passing game looked really good the second half. Carson Beck made some incredible throws. So as I look at bet, check, or fold, and it's not because I'm just a Georgia fan, I'm still betting on Georgia. I'm still betting on Georgia, and I'll tell you why. Look at all the injuries. South Carolina has a really good team, everyone. Really good team. Spencer Rattler is the guy ain't driving a G-Wagon around South Carolina's campus because people don't think he is not a great quarterback. There's a lot of reasons why Spencer Rattler stayed at South Carolina is because they know what he can put up, and he ended the season beating Clemson last year and Tennessee. And so that kid's really got it going on. They didn't lose a lot. I think what you missed was a good running game. I think Georgia played the run really well. I think the defense still looked great, but man, look at all the missing pieces from yesterday. Like, look at the missing pieces. You got Travell Walthor. You're missing. You had James Dumas Johnson, who was missing some downs in the middle of the game at times. You got Mims, who went off with an ankle injury. Milton started but didn't finish. You got Ladd McConkey, who has yet to take the field. One of our most deadly receivers from last year is yet to get on the field with these back injuries. You got Javon Bullard, who is nursing an ankle. We could have really used Javon, even though we had some great. I personally think that I think it's David Daniel Sesnova. I think he played really well. I think even Joel Aguaro, he could have played, but I think Kirby, man, in those situations, he doesn't want to put the pressure on the young guys with the pressure of trying to do things the right way. And so David Daniel Sesava, man, he played an incredible game for Bullard. Here's another thing. Tyke Smith. Holy cow, Tyke Smith. Man, have we missed him. He was such a player that came out of West Virginia that was supposed to be a game changer. And he was everywhere. That's going to be a scary secondary. Scary secondary when all of them get back healthy. I think it's pretty much assured that Everett over there, that other corner position, the Dylan Everett is gonna lock down the opposite side of Kamari Lassiter. And I think if you get Bullard healthy, and I think if you get Tyke healthy, that is an incredible secondary. Mykel Williams, hey, we saw Mykel Williams in the second half, so he got some pressure. You saw man, I'm betting on Georgia. Would I be betting on them if they didn't win? Yes, because there's so many injuries right now, and everybody has injuries. But to show the team that's out there right now, Dan Jackson he's rocking third string at either star or strong or free safety right now. Gets an interception. He's coming off an injury from last year. He didn't play. He played about 2% of the downs last year. So to see Georgia be so deep right now at all of the positions, to where a lot of players that are key players in this team not playing right now, is incredible. That's why I'm betting on it, because I want to see this team. When I see this team coming together and they can get these injuries off of their plate and onto the field, what they can be is a three-peat team. I know some people are like, man, you mentioned the word three-peat. They can. It's going to be really, really tough if the injuries continue to mount up on top of the injuries they have now. I'm hoping that Ladd McConkey gets back. He's got 2 more weeks to get back for Auburn. I don't think he has to be back for UAB. And I'd love to see Kendall Milton get a few more steps on him, and I'd love to see what's going on with Mims and Bullard. But when you look at the fan base, all we're blaming it on right now is Bobo and Carson. And let me just tell you, I think Carson is the guy. I think he showed you he has elusiveness. It's not Stetson Bennett, but he shows you he has elusiveness. I think he can be great. He's not going to be a Stetson Bennett. Nobody can be a Stetson Bennett. Just like nobody can be a Tom Brady, okay? Tom Brady is going to be Tom Brady. Nobody can be Nick Saban. But if you look, they posted Kirby Smart's record at this time in Kirby Smart's career being, I think, now 84-15. Nick Saban was 83-15 at this time when he was coming in Alabama. So nobody can be a Nick Saban, but you do have Kirby Smart side by side putting up some impressive stats. So I'm betting on Georgia. I'm betting on them to get healthy. They have some tough games coming up, and you might say, well, South Carolina wasn't a tough game. Well, no offense, and Kirby will tell you this, every game in the SEC is tough. The SEC is the best conference, bar none. I don't care when they build the Big 20 because we know there's 1,000 teams over there, and the big whatever 15 comes into play. The SEC adding Texas, adding Oklahoma next year is just going to bolster these two conferences, and they're not having an East or West, and so I'm betting on Georgia, but I'm betting on them if they get healthy. If they continue to lose players, it's going to be hard. They have depth, but they have young depth, and we've seen what some teams are doing with young depth this year, and that's making some bonehead decisions, making some mistakes. All the athletic ability in the world, but you got to be able to perform and know what's going on. So really fun night tonight. Talked about Alabama USF. I'm folding on Alabama. I actually picked Alabama to be in the SEC championship. With saying that, I thought there would just be a little bit more there as far as promise in the offensive line and promise in the defense. And the defense, yeah, they stopped USF, but you want to talk about measuring stick. Your measuring stick was USF, but they're going to put Milroe back in there. And if you don't see a better defensive performance and a better just overall offensive ball control, I would call it, just trying to make some sense of drives, it is going to be a very, very interesting night for Lane Kiffin on Saturday night. I can't wait for that game. I'm looking as much forward to that game as I was Tennessee and Florida. So I'm folding on Alabama. So my SEC West pick might be out the door. I'm checking on Tennessee. I'm checking on Tennessee because I still think there's a lot there with Heupel. A lot of controversy about the last few calls of that game and the fighting and all this stuff and the classless timeout and all these other things. But Heupel's got a lot more to worry about than calling timeouts at inappropriate times. He's got to get his players ready to play on the road. And we all knew it was going to be a test on the road. They had been hunky-dory at home in Knoxville for a few games. We're going to see a lot about some of these teams, even Georgia. It's unheard of due to scheduling issues. With Oklahoma, it's unheard of for your first 4 games of the year to be at home. So I'm not going to look too far ahead, but you want to talk about interesting is Georgia Auburn. That's interesting because that is the first road game for Georgia of the year, and they got to go to Auburn. They got to go to the Deep South's oldest rivalry, and Auburn possibly when they get there. Because newsflash, I'm picking Auburn over Texas A&M this week. Newsflash, we could have 2 undefeated teams going against each other in 2 weeks, and it could be Auburn is road tested and Georgia is not right now. So I'll just leave that one with you to end the night. So I'm betting on Georgia, but man, there's some interesting things to come. I'm looking forward to going on tomorrow night and recapping the entire SEC play, but I love going on and talking about some of the drama, stir my Georgia fan base up, my Alabama fan base up, my Tennessee fan base up, and folded on Alabama, checking on Tennessee, and I'm betting on Georgia, not because I'm a fan, because I think Georgia can be really, really good this year if we can get these injuries resolved this year. So make sure you go drop a share of this video. Make sure that you like my page. Make sure that you go to YouTube and subscribe to my page, Ready Ted Go on YouTube. And like I said, working on this week to another layer is Reels and TikToks. I'm really going to dive into that this week to see if I can make this happen. So great time spending with you tonight in my casino background where we're talking about bet, checking, or folding. Hope you like the interest level of my coming to you in front of the casino to make that all happen. And so love to hear your comments. If you check this later, I'll go back and check them as well. But a lot of cool things happening this week with recap, mailbag on tomorrow night, and then pick'ems on Wednesday and mailbag on Wednesday. So you guys have a great Sunday night and have a great week. Thanks for joining in at Ready, Ted, Go. Bye-bye.